teams as we make history in Vegas. Snyder's, the Nevada-style pub at 8410 West Cheyenne, 1750 North Buffalo, and Las Vegas Boulevard in Windmill. Snyder.
The views and opinions expressed in the following program are those of the program's participants and do not necessarily reflect those of station staff, management, and advertisers.
Time now for the most listened to talk show in Vegas.
You think we're fighting, and I think we're finally talking.
Talking with those on the right, the left, and everywhere in between.
Quiet. Shut up and let me answer, okay?
Answer.
Pot him down, please, because this is another MAGA who doesn't understand how to have a conversation with somebody.
It's Pushing the Limits with Brian Shapiro.
I'm kind of a big deal.
This show will make you laugh, make you cry, and it might raise Brian's blood pressure.
You know what, dude? You know what, dude? People like you, all you do is make excuses for the orange turd, and I've had it.
All the smash and grabs and everything. Yeah, tell me, what race is doing that, first of all?
Okay, so you want to be a racist now. Okay.
What race is doing it? Seen it on the news?
I don't watch Klan TV like you do, sir.
Buckle up, because it's Pushing the Limits with Brian Shapiro.
You're different. I like you.
Now, here's Brian.
All right, what's going on, everybody? A very happy Hump Day Wednesday, very busy news day. Of course, we have a lot to get to. Of course, what's going on in Israel, tragic. We'll be talking about that. The vice presidential debate. I was on D. Lemon's show, Mr. Don Lemon's show last night. We'll talk a little bit about that. We have plenty of cuts to play, plenty of opinions, audio you might be watching on the Occupy Democrats Network, on the Washington Press Network. Of course, the FM AM dial, the fastest growing shows in the country, and we are going to be hearing from you. There is no question about that. We will be hearing from you as well. But you know what? Right off the bat on this show, before I even give you my opinions, I said, let's bring the former congressman and let's bring the former presidential candidate on the show, because I want to have a chat with him. And last night on the debate stage, debate, of course, I'm talking about my good friend and presidential candidate, Joe Walsh, joining us right now on the show. Joe, have you on, my friend. I appreciate it. How are you?
Brian, you're good, but you're coming in and out on me a little bit, my friend.
Uh-oh. I'm sorry about that. Can you hear us okay now?
Now I got you, brother.
All right. Sorry about that, Joe. So I guess, thank you for being here, by the way, of course. I want to get your thoughts on what took place on that stage last night. I'm not sure it moves the needle either direction. But what were some of your positives and negatives with both candidates last night? What are your thoughts, Joe?
I agree that I don't know if it will move anything. I think J.D. Vance won that debate, and I don't think it was close. And it pains me and saddens me to say that. Look, Bri, from the beginning, if Donald Trump is normalized, he's got a really good shot at winning. If most Americans believe, as I believe, that he's a uniquely dangerous threat to this country, he won't win. J.D. Vance did a great job last night of normalizing Trump and also normalizing J.D. Vance. And I was really disappointed in Tim Walz. He acted like he was on stage with a normal Republican VP nominee. Right. No, MAGA is a threat to our country. This is not a normal election. I didn't hear that.
So I agree with a lot of what you said. I don't know if I would say that Vance won, but I certainly would say that he didn't lose. But I thought there were a couple points. This is why I thought she should have picked Josh Shapiro, by the way. In my personal opinion, Josh Shapiro would have wiped the floor clean with JD Vance. But I want to ask you, there were a couple important moments in this debate, starting with who won the 2020 election. Will you admit that Donald Trump lost? What were your thoughts on that lack of an answer that JD Vance gave? And I'm shocked that Waltz didn't push him harder on that.
Utterly disqualifying, right? 4 years later, you still can't say that Donald Trump lost the election. That alone right there is why Vance and Trump should lose. But Brian, I'm with you. I'd have been throwing my shoe at him if I were Tim Walz. I'd have gotten out from behind my damn podium.
Right.
This
right.
is
I agree.
Outrageous. And I didn't get the righteous anger from Walz that I needed.
Agree. In talking about gun control, and Joe, we've talked about gun control. We disagree a little bit on the issues, but we both agree that something needs to be done here. When talking about school shootings, JD Vance said, I believe I'm quoting him as saying, we need to harden our schools. Our windows and doors need to be stronger. In talking about people walking in there with AR-15s, and he thinks locking a door will help. Joe, I know we disagree a little bit on gun control, but can you agree with me that that was a ridiculous answer?
If that's all, yeah, and I actually don't remember that part, Brian. If that's all he said, yeah. I mean, to me, that's part of a potential solution, but that ain't the whole solution. And just like you can't be a gun control person and blame everything on the gun, you can't be a gun rights guy like me and say guns have nothing to do with everything. And all we have to do is just, fortify our schools. No, that's not it. That's part of it.
Yeah. JD Vance called her the border czar over and over again, blamed her for Hamas attacks against Israel, which I found to be utterly disgusting. I don't know why Tim Walz didn't push back on that. This is the part that frustrates me a little bit. And I like Tim Walz, by the way. I think he's a really good guy, a normal guy, a good guy, not a great debater. I'm just going to be honest. Tim Walz, not a great debater. If you're going to decide to run as vice president of the United States, you have to be confident in your abilities to debate. And even though he had more facts and JD Vance dodged a lot of questions and lied, let's just be honest, at the same time, Waltz had, in my opinion, so many opportunities to interject, to give him a ton of pushback. Didn't even talk about the hurricane when Donald Trump shows up there the other day and lies about Joe Biden's alleged lack of interaction with Kemp, and we know that's not true. He didn't bring any of that stuff up. He didn't bring up the cat lady comments. He didn't bring up how JD Vance was attacking everybody in this country when they not having kids. Joe, why didn't he bring up any of that stuff?
And again, Brian, this goes to part of why I believe Vance won. Vance did a great job. I disagree with him, but he did a great job going after Kamala Harris. He did a great job landing a bunch of blows. To what you said, Waltz didn't do any of that. You're a VP candidate. Part of your job is to be the attack dog. I didn't get him attacking Trump, not nearly as much as Vance attacked Harris. Waltz looked nervous to me. Look, Brian, and I'm a former politician. There are retail politicians and wholesale politicians. Retail politicians are the guys that go into the coffee shops and the diners, and they can mix and mingle with regular folk. Tim Walz is that kind of guy. JD Vance is not that kind of guy because he's weird. But JD Vance in front of a camera on TV is damn good and damn polished and damn slick. Walz didn't have any of that. He looked nervous.
I agree. And he told a lot of the people around him in his orbit that he was nervous. And he told the Harris campaign in advance that he didn't feel like he was a great debater. I want to ask you this, Joe. You know a thing or two about debates. If you had an opportunity, I'll kind of put you on the spot here a little bit. If you had an opportunity for a closing remark and you were standing a few feet away from JD Vance, Joe, and you were running against him for anything, I'm just curious, at this point, what would you tell him and what would you say to the American people?
I would have gone after JD Vance personally, Brian. I would have looked at him because I believe, and I know Tim Walz know this, JD Vance is an utter fraud. It was just a mere few years ago that JD Vance said Trump is America's Hitler. That Donald Trump is an utter danger to this country, that Donald Trump hates on way too many people. JD Vance sold his soul to advance politically. And I think it's emblematic of a lot of Americans right now, politicians and American voters, who are selling their souls, who are just going to say, I want to vote for Trump because I want tax cuts. I want to vote for Trump because he's going to build a wall. All the politicians who know he's a bad guy and know he's unfit. I would have used JD Vance in my closing argument as the poster child for an American who has sold his soul, who's not doing what's right by this country because all he cares about is his own self-interest. And I would have gone after him hard in my closing argument, and I would have asked him why. Why are you doing this?
Joe, I wish you were up there last night, to be honest with you. Okay, so going back to what we started with, and I think this is probably most important, right? Will it have an effect? I was talking with Don Lemon about this last night on his show. You know, we're talking about independents, Republicans, MAGA Republicans, and those on the far right. They're going to be voting for Trump. Democrats are going to be voting for Harris, no matter what happened on that debate stage for the most part last night. But we're talking about moderate Republicans, independents, and you speak to a lot of moderate Republicans every day. So my question to you is, will this have any effect on the elections in November? Because I'm not sure it will.
I worry that it might on the margins. I'm in the battleground states every week talking to independents and Republicans. And generally, Brian, they all tell me Trump's an ass, but I'm not sure where Kamala stands on things. What JD Vance did last night, he helped normalize Trump. So I think he gave permission to independents and Republicans to say, okay, I'll vote for Trump. Maybe he's not that bad. That's what I really worry about.
Yeah, I worry about that as well. Joe, where are we going to see you on television? Are you doing any CNN or any TV tonight?
Not tonight. I'll be on a bunch of MSNBC and CNN heading into the weekend. I'm going to Georgia tomorrow to campaign for Republicans for Harris. Brian, I might be out in Vegas this weekend.
A friend of mine told me, a mutual friend of ours told me that you might be out here. So tequila on me, Joe, if you're coming out here this weekend.
If I'm coming out, you have to buy me some tequila.
Absolutely. Joe, hope to see. You've been doing my show for years. We've never actually met in person, so that would be fun. Joe, love you, my friend. Thanks so much for coming on as always, and hopefully we'll get to meet this weekend, and good to see you. Thanks for coming on, Joe. Appreciate you.
Thanks, Brian.
Appreciate that. That's Joe Walsh, everybody. Former presidential candidate, former congressman. Listen, I respect Joe's opinion a lot. Now I'm going to give you my opinions, and we're going to play some audio. I'm going to start with my thoughts on the debate to start. I was asked minutes after the debate on Don Lemon's show last night who I thought won. And I'm going to start by saying this, because while I'm very anti-Trump, I don't like JD Vance, and I'm very open and honest about that. I'm also honest about what happens on a debate stage. Example, I was very concerned with Joe Biden before that debate against Donald Trump. What happened? Well, Joe Biden, we all know what happened there, and I talked about it on the air the next day, and I called for weeks for him to step aside. We all know what happened in that debate. It wasn't that Donald Trump won, it's that Joe Biden lost it. And I was very open and honest about that. And then a few weeks ago, the Kamala Harris debate, I told you guys that Harris would wipe the floor clean with Trump. And listen, there are going to be MAGA people out there with no credibility. They're going to say Trump won the debate because Trump said he did. We all know what happened on that debate stage. Kamala Harris wiped the floor clean with Donald Trump. She's a former prosecutor. She's very intelligent. She did a great job. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't think he won the debate last night. You could say that J.D. Vance was polished. That's fine. But there's many questions he dodged and he wouldn't answer. And I also thought Tim Walz missed a lot of opportunities. I believe he did look a little nervous. He didn't push back on multiple occasions when I felt like he needed to. He did okay. I'm not going to sit here and rag on Tim Walz. This wasn't a Joe Biden performance, right? I thought he did fine. He did okay. But I wanted him to do better than okay. And I'm not going to sit here and lie and say that Tim Walz won on that debate stage last night, because I don't believe he did. I also am not going to sit here and say J.D. Vance wiped the floor clean with Tim Walz. He did fine. Even though he lied, even though I disagree with almost everything he said, he refused to admit that Donald Trump lost the 2020 election. His stance on gun control was an embarrassment. He refused to talk about Donald Trump calling climate change a hoax. And I would have pushed back hard, and I don't believe Tim Walz did that, and that's why I say it's a draw. So when I say somebody won or somebody lost, what I'm telling you is they lost voters or they won voters. This is about independents. This is about moderate Republicans. And yes, if you're a Democrat, you're going to say that Tim Walz won last night. Chances are, if you're a Republican, you're going to say that J.D. Vance won. I am neither. I don't think either candidate won yesterday. I don't think any candidate or either candidate won independence yesterday. I don't care what Frank Luntz says when he picks 10 alleged voters that are undecided. If you're undecided at this point, you're a moron. Okay, I'm sorry. If you're undecided, either three things are going to happen right now. Either you're voting for Donald Trump, either you're voting for Kamala Harris, or you're not going to vote at all. You're not undecided. I've had it with people that say they're undecided. Frank Luntz is a tool. So that's my personal opinion. Tim Walz is not a great debater. He showed that last night. J.D. Vance is a liar, and he spews nonsense, but he's a little bit, if you want to use the term smooth, I guess some people are using that. That's fine. That's my opinion on what took place on that debate stage last night. I don't think there was a clear winner. I don't believe that it's going to change anybody's minds. Vice presidential debates usually don't have any impact on the presidential election anyway, but I thought Tim Walz missed an opportunity. He missed a lot of opportunities last night, and I was yelling at the TV. I was frustrated. I was angry, just like I was frustrated when Joe Biden debated Donald Trump a few months ago. I was frustrated. I was angry. So this was a really important moment, though, in the debate, and I think it's important to discuss this because you talk about the threat to democracy. And yes, I'm one of those people that I do believe that Donald Trump is a threat to democracy. And this was a nice moment for Tim Walz, where he spoke about Donald Trump's loss, obviously, in the 2020 election. And again, because J.D. Vance has no backbone and he's a coward, and he's only speaking to one person that's watching, and that's Donald Trump, listen to this exchange.
Ability to say he is still saying he didn't lose the election. I would just ask that. Did he lose the 2020 election?
Tim, I'm focused on the future. Did Kamala Harris censor Americans from speaking their mind in the wake of the 2020 COVID situation?
That is a damning non-answer.
It's a damning non-answer for you to not talk about censorship. Obviously, Donald Trump and I think that there were problems in 2020. We've talked about it. I'm happy to talk about it further.
Okay, so this is what I'm talking about now. If I'm Tim Walz, I say, I'm happy to talk to you about censorship. That wasn't the question or the conversation. I never brought up problems. That wasn't the question. Whether you think there were problems or not in the election, that's not the question. I'm going to ask it to you again. The question is, who won the 2020 election free and fair? And again, Tim Walz didn't push back. But that was a very important part of the debate because, again, it shows you what a coward J.D. Vance is, and I would have said it to his face. J.D. Vance is a coward. He won't answer the basic question of who won the 2020 election. If you're a Republican, if you're a MAGA Republican, you probably love that response because he wouldn't answer the question. If you're a Democrat, you're probably upset and angry at the response. Or if you're somebody like me, you're upset that, again, Tim Walz didn't push him on that. What I would have said is, this is the guy who's one heartbeat away, if they win in November, of being the leader of the free world, and he's not willing to admit that Donald Trump lost a free and fair election. There is no evidence of widespread voter fraud that could have changed the outcome of this free and fair election. And the reason why J.D. Vance stands here and refuses to answer the question, because he knows there's a listener of one. He's speaking to Donald Trump. That's exactly what I would have said. Do you want the second in command in this country to only kiss up to one person and not put America first and not put our democracy first? Because that's what J.D. Vance is doing on a debate stage right now. That's exactly what I would have said. This is all ad lib for me. Now, I could have wrote some stuff down and maybe been more eloquent in my answer, but Tim Walz didn't do any of that. And I was very disappointed. This is another point in the debate where you're talking about gun control. Again, gun control, gun violence is at all-time highs in this country. We're having school shootings left and right. It's an abomination. It's terrible. It doesn't matter whether there's gun violence in Chicago or Nevada, wherever it is, but they're specifically talking about school shootings, right? Innocent kids being gunned down and massacred in their schools. And have a listen to J.D. Vance's response, or lack thereof, it's idiocy, when it comes to gun control and school shootings.
It's really rich for Democratic leaders to say that Donald Trump is a unique threat to democracy when he peacefully.
I made a mistake there. That's my bad. Before we get to the gun control stuff, I want to play you a commercial that Kamala Harris and the campaign put out in regard, before we get to the gun control stuff, in regards to Donald Trump losing the 2020 election and the fact that J.D. Vance won't answer. Have a listen to this.
It's really rich for Democratic leaders to say that Donald Trump is a unique threat to democracy when he peacefully gave over power.
He is still saying he didn't lose the election. I would just ask that. Did he lose the 2020 election?
Tim, I'm focused on the future.
That is a damning non-answer. America, I think you've got a really clear choice of who's going to honor that democracy and who's going to honor Donald Trump.
I think that's a really good campaign ad. And I think they should keep running it over and over and over again. J.D. Vance wouldn't answer the basic of questions like so many of these MAGA right-wing cowards. I've had some of them in studio that won't answer a direct question when I ask them who won the 2020 election. All right, now we'll go to the gun control cut. Again, this is the part where Vance is talking about school shootings. This is the part where Vance is asked, how do we deter some of these school shooters? And listen to J.D. Vance's response.
But what do we do about the schools? What do we do to protect our kids? And I think the answer is, and I say this not loving the answer, because I don't want my kids to go to school in a school that feels unsafe or where there are visible signs of security. But I unfortunately think that we have to increase security in our schools. We have to make the doors lock better. We have to make the doors stronger. We've got to make the windows stronger. And of course, we've got to increase school resource officers, because the idea that we can magically wave a wand and take guns out of the hands of bad guys, it just doesn't fit with recent experience. So we've got to make our schools safer. And I think we've got to have some common sense bipartisan solutions for how to do that.
He spoke about we need stronger windows and we need stronger doors in the schools, as if somebody like Uvalde, Texas, who just shot his grandmother in the face, will stop because a door is locked. Let me tell you something. AR-15s and some of these weapons that are being used in these mass shootings, they can pretty much shoot down a door and a window. So J.D. Vance, again, very weak on gun control, like so many Republicans are in 2024. So I thought that was a W for Tim Walz. But again, he wasn't aggressive enough in going after J.D. Vance. And again, Vance dodged a lot of questions yesterday, including climate change. Donald Trump once called climate change a hoax. Have a listen to J.D. Vance dodging the question.
And more of. But to call it a hoax and to take the oil company executives to Mar-a-Lago, say, give me money for my campaign and I'll let you do whatever you want. We can be smarter about that. And an all-above energy policy is exactly what she's doing, creating those jobs right here.
Governor, your time is up. The overwhelming consensus among scientists is that the Earth's climate is warming at an unprecedented rate. Margaret?
Yeah, that's actually very, very true. And again, Vance dodged the question when he was asked. He brought up immigration. He was asked right after that, talking about immigration, and he literally interrupted and didn't answer the question about climate change, and then started about the border, calling, again, talking points. Kamala Harris, the borders are, which she was not. So, again, there's many more cuts that I can play for you. And the bottom line is this. I don't believe there was a clear winner. The reason why I say that is I don't think it's going to change anybody's minds. I do think the Kamala Harris debate with Donald Trump did change some minds when it came to people that aren't voting for Trump but might be on the fence on whether they can support Harris or not. I thought Kamala did a great job, and she wiped the floor clean with Donald Trump. J.D. Vance didn't do that. He dodged a lot of questions. It's just the way he spoke, he was more polished. But that doesn't mean he won the debate. because there wasn't any substance there, just calling her the border czar the entire debate and blaming her for inflation, which is absurd. Again, over and over and over again, the same right-wing talking points. Doesn't mean he won the debate. He just was more polished, and Tim Walz was not, for lack of a better term, as good of a debater and seemed nervous. That's why I don't say there was a clear winner here, but here's a really funny moment and a pathetic moment. Biff, also known as Donald Trump Jr., was questioned right after the debate from Caitlin Collins, who I think does a pretty darn good job. So Caitlin Collins goes up to Don Jr., and Don Jr. is the guy that brings up the word Hitler. Have a listen to how this went down.
Environment wasn't just created by Donald Trump.
Okay, but can I say, you can't blame, and everyone wants your dad to be safe. No one wants the threats against his life to happen, but you can't blame the media for those threats. There's been no evidence that's what drove those.
And allows people to have a platform to call someone literally Hitler every day for 9 years, it creates it.
Okay.
Whether you want to believe it or not, that's a fact.
But as you know, J.D. Vance once likened your dad to Hitler as well. He questioned if he was America's Hitler. But I want to talk about the debate.
Yeah. Good job, Caitlin. Yeah, so Don Jr. is blaming the left for calling Donald Trump Hitler, but yet his vice presidential nominee said Donald Trump is the next American Adolf Hitler. I mean, you cannot make this stuff up, the stupidity of Biff, also known as Donald Trump Jr. This is idiocy at its finest, ladies and gentlemen. Absolutely absurd and ridiculous. It's absurd. And while all this stuff is going on the debate stage last night, I'm surprised they didn't bring this up. I'm surprised that Tim Walz didn't push hard on Donald Trump doubling down again in response to the injured U.S. troops in Iran in 2020 when Trump suggested they weren't really hurt because they had a headache. And we know many of these brave soldiers had traumatic brain injury, and they've talked about that. And again, Donald Trump doubled down on this yesterday. Have a listen to what he said about these troops and allegedly having just a headache, which we know is not true. They had traumatic brain injury.
Do you think Israel should retaliate to these missile attacks from Iran? But also, do you believe that you should have been tougher on Iran after they had launched ballistic missiles in 2020 on U.S. forces in Iraq, leaving more than 100 U.S. soldiers injured?
So, first of all, injured. What does injured mean? Injured means you mean because they had a headache, because the bombs never hit the fort. So just so you understand, there was nobody ever tougher in Iraq. They had no money with me. They would have made any deal with me. I would have had a deal made within 1 week after the election. They were dying to make a deal. And when you say not tough, they had no money. They had no money for Hamas. They had no money for Hezbollah. And when we hit them, they hit us. And they called us. And they said, we're going to shoot at your fort, but we're not going to hit it. And if you were a truthful reporter, which you're not, you would tell the following: none of those very accurate missiles hit our fort. They all hit outside. And there was nobody hurt other than the sound. It was loud. And some people said that hurt, and I accept that.
No, some people didn't say they were hurt. The untruthful person is you SOB. Many troops have suffered from traumatic brain injury. Some of those troops have talked about it on the record. I know a thing or two about traumatic brain injury when my family was in a very serious car accident when I was 12 years old. Members of my family have traumatic brain injury. It's not a headache, you stupid imbecile. And should we be surprised that Donald Trump once again is diminishing, lying, and insulting our brave men and women in uniform? If he's not calling them suckers and losers, if he's not saying he doesn't respect somebody because they were captured, now he's discrediting them and trying to say that, well, they just had a headache. No, they didn't just have a headache. I have a headache when I listen to the orange turd speak. That doesn't mean I have traumatic brain injury. And this guy is such an imbecile. He doesn't even know what traumatic brain injury is. Let me tell you something. TBI is something that many people in this country and throughout the world have to live with for their entire life, and it usually never goes away. It's damage to your brain that sticks with you, sadly, for your entire life. And the fact that this man will call it a headache or say, basically diminishing it to just take some Tylenol and you'll be just fine is so disrespectful. It's so disgusting. And the fact that Tim Walz served for 24 years didn't really hammer this home yesterday is also very disappointing. Donald Trump doubling down again on his stupidity. He is a disgrace. And again, diminishing and insulting our brave men and women in uniform. He seems to try to diminish and insult anybody that is brave. He seems to try to diminish and insult anybody that is more intelligent than him, that is more respected than him, which is a very low bar when it comes to Donald Trump. I say one more time, there were over 100 troops that were seriously injured. Many of them received traumatic brain injury from that missile strike. Donald Trump is a liar, and the fact that he continues to say this again in 2024 is mesmerizing to me, but we shouldn't be surprised. He still says he won the 2020 election, and he also says he won that debate with Kamala Harris on a debate stage. He's full of crap. Everything he says is a lie. I don't care how smooth you think J.D. Vance is. You want that idiot to run this country again? You want that idiot, that liable sexual abusing rapist, that 34-count felon. You want that man, and I use that term man loosely, you want that man to be the leader of the free world? No matter what took place on a vice presidential debate stage yesterday, give me a break. But I'll let you make the case, and I am calling out my MAGA supporters. They're not my MAGA supporters. I guess they're MAGA listeners. To call into the show. Tell me what you think about those statements that Donald Trump made about those troops. Tell me what you think about that debate last night. Tell me what you think about J.D. Vance, again, not answering a very simple question, who won the 2020 election, not answering questions about climate change, calling her the border czar throughout the entire debate. But I will end this segment on a positive note. At least there was some civility. At least there wasn't name-calling on a debate stage. At least it was somewhat normal, even though I don't think J.D. Vance is normal. At least the debate was civil. I will give both candidates at least some credit for that. They shook hands after. They introduced their spouses. That's the way a debate should be run, right? With some level of civility. And I am glad that that took place last night, because we see these Donald Trump debates and it's nothing but name-calling and interrupting and making it personal. I'm glad that didn't happen yesterday to an extent. I'm glad that neither candidate went that route. That is actually a good thing for the country. And I truly am happy to see that. So this is the most interactive show in the country, I would argue. We get calls all over the country, sometimes all over the world. This show's about you. I want to hear from you. I want to give you a voice. I don't care whether you're a MAGA supporter. I don't care whether you're a Kamala Harris supporter. I want to get your take on the vice presidential debate last night, Donald Trump's comments thereafter, talking about the headaches. I think that's important to note. I want to get your overall thoughts. Before we take a break, and then we'll take phone calls on the other side of the break, and I want to hear from you. This is an independently owned radio show. What does that mean? Well, it means we rely on good people like you to help us out, and I get emails from people every day. So, the first thing you can do to help us out, check out the new website. We're very proud of it, pushingthelimits.live. Again, that website is pushingthelimits.live. We sell hats, shirts, all sorts of different merchandise, PTL merchandise in the shopping section. But if you don't want to buy merchandise, that's fine. Something really easy. There's the donate page right on the front there. Little button that you press, takes 2 minutes of your time. Doesn't matter whether it's $5, $10, $20, whatever you could afford. We really appreciate it on a monthly basis. Helps us keep the lights on and keep doing what we're doing here. So we appreciate it. Check out the website, pushingthelimits.live. We are going to hear from you next at 702-221-7283. Lines are always busy because our lines are always full. Okay, we're full right now, but keep trying, and we'll get to you. And I'm gonna dedicate the rest of the show to hearing from you. So we'll take a quick break. We'll be back right after this. You're listening to Pushing the Limits right here on KSHP. And before I take a break, I forgot to mention I have a big announcement to make. Bernie Sanders is going to be joining us on the show Friday, so we're really looking forward to that. Man, we've had some great guests on this show. We always have great guests on this show, but it'll be nice to be hearing from Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders will be joining us on the show, talking about his support for Kamala Harris. I will challenge him on some questions, but Bernie Sanders will be joining us on Friday. We'll take a quick break. We'll be back right after this. It's Pushing the Limits right here on KSHP.
In these uncertain times, we need a leader who puts policy over politics.
I'm Ron Quince. I am beyond the bickering and what we see today. I am running to fight for your values, faith, family, and freedom.
Ron Quince stands for safe borders, lower taxes, and lower prices.
Let's take our country back, one community, one vote at a time. I am Ron Quince, and I'm asking for your vote because every vote matters. I am Ron Quince, and I approve this message.
Hi, Doug Basham here, and first I'd like to thank my good friend and colleague Brian Shapiro for letting me tell you on his show that we are coming back. Beginning on Monday, October the 7th, I'll be back on in my original time slot, 11 a.m. to 12 noon Pacific time. That's the hour right before Brian. So, 1 hour of me, 2 hours of Brian. Does it get any better than that? I think not. So join me starting this Monday, October the 7th, Monday through Friday from 11 a.m. to 12 noon Pacific, right here on KSHP. Or if you'd like to watch the show, go to my website, DougBasham.com, and click on the YouTube link. Either way, be there.
Tired of the same old date night? Craving a deeper connection with your partner? O-Box is your escape into a world of romance and passion. Each month, discover a box filled with personalized surprises, exciting activities, and a love story written just for the two of you. Ignite desire, share laughter, and make memories that last a lifetime. Your O-Box journey culminates into a beautiful love novel. Ready to write the first thrilling chapter? Let the O-Box adventure begin. Visit our website, obox.com. That's OBOXXX.com. And get started.
Have you ever dreamed of having your own radio show or a podcast, but just didn't think it was possible? Well, dreams can come true. Radio U. Radio U is a 5-day course that'll teach you how to acquire your dream show. We'll teach you how to host, how to write commercial, how to interview, how to market, how to write a contract, and most importantly, how to monetize your dream radio show. You'll learn from some of the best in the business with over 75 years in broadcast experience. You'll learn from people like me. And the best part? Every single student will be live on the radio as part of the class. Plus, one student from each class will get their very own radio show. You'll be live on the air right here in Las Vegas. Radio U. The 5-day course is being offered at $699. For more information, give Radio U a call. 702-763-5024. That's 702-763-5024. Or check them out at RadioYOU101.com.
All right, welcome back. It is Pushing the Limits on a Wednesday. Thank you so much for joining us. We're working on some very special guests tomorrow on the show, but as I mentioned, Bernie Sanders will be joining us on Friday, and that should be a lot of fun. I was on Don Lemon's show actually last night. He does a really good job, and I'm not used to, being on panels with like 4 or 5 people, so you have to be very patient. So that's terrible for my ADD, because as you know, I'm a talker. But that was a lot of fun. So I appreciate Don Lemon for allowing me to come on as a guest on his show. I like Don a lot, and I really appreciate him joining us. Also appreciate the official gaming bar of the Pushing the Limits radio show. Of course, I'm talking about Jackson's Bar and Grill and Flamingo and Jones, and boy, do they have some great promotions for this month, including the Implosion promotion. Now, I'm not talking about the implosion that Donald Trump had in 15 seconds with Stormy Daniels. Not that kind of implosion. No, don't get that. I know, get that image out of your mind. But October 1st through the 8th, we are in that time frame. For every 100 points you earn, you get 5 free virtual tickets in this drum, where they're going to be announcing 5 winners on October 9th. First prize is $1,000 in free play, and then 5th place, $100 in free play, and it goes all the way down there. So pretty darn cool promotions, particularly this week for Jackson's Bar and Grill, Flamingo and Jones. So please check them out. So we're talking about the vice presidential debate last night. Your thoughts. I gave you my thoughts, and now I want to hear your thoughts because it's the most interactive show in not just Las Vegas, but I would argue across the country. 702-221-7283. And again, if the line's busy, which we usually are, we get a lot of calls on this show, just keep trying, man. We'll get to you. Let's go to John. John is first up on PTL. What's going on, John? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Brian, this is John from Atlanta. How you doing today,
I'm
sir?
doing good, John. Thanks for calling in, my friend. What'd you think about the debate last night?
Well, first of all, sorry about your family with TBI. I encountered TBI as well when I was in the military.
Thank you. Yeah.
And I wasn't diagnosed with that until I was in VA regarding my back surgery. I have had 3 surgeries on my back from jumping out of helicopters. Wow. Long story short, I had 57 staples in my back, and I was telling them about my headaches, and after my last surgery, they realized that I had TBI. So right now I'm in
Well,
process
you're a hero.
of,
You're a hero, and I'm really sorry to hear that, my friend. And you have Donald Trump saying that people like you just have headaches and you're just going to be just fine.
Yeah.
I mean, he said it years ago, and he says it yesterday. I mean, it's so disrespectful to people like you, and it drives me nuts.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. The debate, as much as I could watch, because I ended up getting tired and went to sleep, but I thought it was a little more civil than we've been used to seeing. And I can appreciate the civilness of it. I didn't like all the fact checking that I had to do, but I did enjoy the civil conversation.
Agree.
Yeah.
That was definitely a positive, and it's nice to see a little bit of normalcy. I wouldn't necessarily say J.D. Vance is normal, but at least both people up there showed a little bit of respect for one another, even though, listen, there was a lot of disrespect to Kamala Harris.
Yeah.
But at the same time, at least there was some civility, and I think that's a good thing for the country.
It really was. I really believe it was. Hopefully, Kamala wins, and we can move forward and go from there. But I enjoyed it. I missed the Don Lemon interview. I wanted to see that, but I really missed that. Like I said,
well,
I'll probably try to catch it on.
I'm sure I'll be back on his show, and I'm sure he'll be back on my show, my friend. And I appreciate you calling in. And again, thank you for your service to this great country. I will never, ever come close to saying any of the horrible things that Donald Trump has said about people like you. Our brave men and women in uniform are the reasons why I'm able to go on the radio every day. It's the reasons why we have freedoms that we have in this country, the best country in the world. And for Donald Trump to continually crap on our military speaks volumes as to who he is, the draft dodger himself. Thank you for the call, sir, and your service. 702-221-7283 is the number to call if you want to join the show. Again, that number, 702-221-7283, the number to call. Why don't we go to, I think we'll go to Dennis. Dennis is next up on PTL. Hi, Dennis. Where are you calling from?
Colorado.
Well, thanks for calling in, Dennis. What's on your mind today?
Sure. I spoke with you yesterday, and you asked me to call back on my ideas of the debate.
I remember, yeah. What did you think?
First off, you need to get one of your female friends to go in and decorate your house. You had a lot of echo on Don Lemon, but neither here nor there.
You're right about that. I've heard that complaint.
Yes. Anna and a bunch of others said Vance is polished. He is. He was a debater in college. One thing that I thought that on abortion, I believe Waltz won on that one.
Sure.
And I agree with you. Nobody won except the American public because we finally seen a civil debate.
Right. I agree. Yeah, I agree with you.
What I didn't like is Waltz looked angry till he spoke, and then he showed excitement.
Yeah.
But Waltz acts and talks like a common person, especially talking about his son at the community center being shot or watching somebody shot. I bet you that hit a lot of parents, especially those that their kids were involved.
And I want to ask you about that.
Shooting.
I think you're right. And I want to ask you about that because you reminded me of something in the debate. So there was a point in the debate where Tim Waltz said he befriended a school shooter, but then he gave context to it. And the reason why he did that is because he wanted to get inside this person's mind to try to deter and find out why they did what they did to try to prevent something like this from happening again, right? He comes from a good place. And then you have right-wing idiots on social media saying, oh, he wants to be friends with the school shooter. No, that's not what Tim Waltz said. He befriended, he developed some sort of relationship with at least one school shooter to try to figure out why they did what they did to try to prevent something like this from happening again. And meanwhile, Donald Trump calls people who beat police officers hostages and patriots. I mean, these people have no ground to stand on. None.
No, they don't.
Yeah.
No. And, Vance wanted to act like a middle-class person. I'm sorry, he may have been middle-class till 15. Then after that, nothing but money for him.
Yeah, well, there's
and
no
politics.
there's no. I agree with you, and nobody should ever use the term class when it comes to JD Vance because he has none, my friend. He has none.
That's
But,
true.
Hey,
That's
I'm glad.
true.
I'm glad you. Yeah, go ahead.
One last thing to say.
Sure.
I agree with Don because I switched over to listen to you and Don.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with them. Kamala, and I think Kim too, ought to go out and do the interviews.
Agree.
I think Waltz would be awesome on Jimmy Kimmel.
Yeah, I agree. So I'm glad you brought that up because I'm on Don Lemon's show last night, and people can go on YouTube and they can see it. And I started this conversation on Lemon's show, and I said, Kamala Harris, I was asked the question, the final 5 weeks of her campaign, what do you want to see? I'm always going to be honest. I said, I want to see her do more interviews and not MSNBC and not these puffer interviews, okay? All due respect to MSNBC. I want to see her go on the Howard Stern show. I want to see her go on Fox News. I want to see her go on the Joe Rogan show. Why? She's not doing well with men. She's doing pretty good with women. She's not doing great with men my age. I don't watch Joe Rogan. I don't like Joe Rogan. But I can tell you right now, if she went on Joe Rogan's show, it would help her. If she went on Howard Stern's show, it would help her. I'm not saying you have to go on Laura Ingram's show, right? I'm not saying you have to go on that moron show, Jesse Waters, that chipmunk. Go on Neil Cavuto's show. Do an interview during the day. Go on Fox and Friends. It's not going to hurt her. And people might be saying, well, Brian, why should Kamala Harris go on Fox News? I'll tell you why. She's not going to lose voters if she goes on Fox News. I do think they're being way too careful with her. I think the campaign is being way too careful. And we had their campaign manager on the show. Mr. Falks came on this show last week, and I asked him, I said, are you guys going to allow her to go on Fox News? And I didn't really get a clear answer from him. I'm disappointed. I'm going to tell you, if she loses, and I don't want her to lose, I'm coming from the right place here. I don't want to see Donald Trump anywhere near the White House again. But I'm telling you, if she loses, one of the reasons will be the same mistakes that Hillary Clinton made. They're being too careful, and they're not letting her do enough interviews. She needs to do more, okay? You do an interview with a podcast with a few basketball players that are supporters of yours, that's not going to help you. You go on MSNBC, it's not going to help you. The overwhelming majority of people that watch MSNBC are going to be voting for you anyway. Go on the opposition. You should be doing 10 interviews a day. You got 5 weeks to go. You should be going on Fox and Friends. And then when you're off Fox and Friends, you should be going on the Joe Rogan show. And then after the Joe Rogan show, you should be doing the Howard Stern show. And then after the Howard Stern show, do a 10-minute hit on Newsmax. And then after Newsmax, you should be going on Primetime. You should be going on Fox News. They are being too careful, and I'm getting agitated by the day. I'm glad that she's doing all these rallies. I'm glad that she's on the campaign trail. But again, all due respect, she's reading a teleprompter. That's great. You're speaking to people that are already going to be voting for you. You should be speaking to people that might not be supporting you. And there's a lot of people that listen to Joe Rogan that you're not doing well with when we're talking about polls and middle-aged men and men 30 to 60. You're not doing well. Do the shows that have those listeners. Why are you doing these puffer interviews on these podcasts that nobody's listening to? And if people are listening to them, they're already going to be voting for you. It's driving me nuts. It's driving me nuts. And I'm getting frustrated because I want her to win. I'm coming from the right place. Don't start talking to me about Donald Trump. I know that Donald Trump isn't going on CNN anymore for the most part. Donald Trump's not doing MSNBC. I get it. But I'm not talking about Donald Trump. Now, we know that Donald Trump's a coward, okay? But Donald Trump won in 2016. And one of the reasons why he won, because he did interviews everywhere. Everywhere. And Hillary did not. And I'm afraid that Kamala Harris is making the same mistake. And I don't even think it's her. I think it's her campaign. They are being too careful. What are you waiting for? You got 5 weeks left to go. You should have done 5 interviews already today. It's 1:00 in the afternoon in Vegas. You should have done 5 interviews already talking about how proud you are of Tim Walz and doing a bunch of interviews. Where are you? You guys are being too careful with her. She's a very intelligent woman, very well spoken. You know what I thought was one of the nicest moments that she's had in several weeks? when she went on Oprah Winfrey and she did an interview with Oprah and she talked about how if intruders go into my home, I'm going to shoot them. That was an unscripted moment. It was a real moment. It was a human moment. I don't think anybody would fault her for saying that. And then she laughed and said, oops, maybe I shouldn't have said that. But it was great that she said that because we're learning who she is and more people need to learn who she is. That was a real human moment. We need to learn more about her, and the American people need to get to know her better. And part of it is her campaign's fault for not putting her out there enough. What is the negative if she did Howard Stern's show? What is the negative if she went on a show like Joe Rogan's show? Now, I don't think Joe Rogan's a great guy. I don't think he's extremely intelligent, but he has a massive audience. And most of the people that listen to his show are middle-aged men. That is the demo of people that she's not doing very well with. Doing a puffer interview with a couple NBA players on a podcast that nobody's listening to is not going to help her. Folks, I'm not speaking a language that many of you don't understand here. I'm not speaking brain surgery here, okay? This is obvious stuff to me. I said this on Don Lemon's show, and there were a few people that disagreed with me. And then when I said, can you name me one negative, one of the guests, I said, can you name me one negative if she did the Howard Stern show tomorrow? She agreed with me, the person on the panel. Don Lemon agreed with me. He agreed with everything I said. I agreed with everything he said. She's got to get out there and do more interviews. The American people deserve it. This has nothing to do with Donald Trump. You know my criticism for Donald Trump. She's got to get out there and do more interviews. And by the way, do interviews with the opposition. I think they're making a big mistake. A big mistake if she doesn't do that. They're being way too careful. So please, I am begging the Harris campaign. I am begging you. Please get out there and do more interviews. Please get out there and do interviews on the opposition. Please. We need to find out more about Kamala Harris, the human being, and less about scripted, I guess you could call it scripted and reading teleprompters at campaign rallies. That's all good and fine, but these are people that are already going to be supporting you. Please get out there and do more interviews. 702-221-7283. Let's go to Donna. Donna's next up on PTL. Hi, Donna.
Hi, Brian. How are you?
Hey, good. What's on your mind today?
Well, you know what? As you were talking, I see your passion, feel your passion there, because I agree with you 100% on that. They need to get her out there more, and why she's not doing that, I don't know. But also last night, you were talking about J.D. Vance and, Walt, that there was no clear winner. I agree with that as well. And I'm going to tell you, I'm a Democrat. I'm 67 years old. I'm a senior. I'm Mexican. And, my passion is there as well. Walt could have done so much more. And during those 90 minutes, Vance, he gave a lot of misinformation. He lied. Sure. And let alone, not admitting that, Trump lost the 2020 election. That enough alone should tell people a lot of who he is.
I agree.
That he can't be trusted.
But here's the problem.
So,
I agree with what you just said. I agree with everything you just said. Here's the problem. There are a lot of people in this country that don't care. There are a lot of people.
I know.
And so you have to take that. Right. Sadly, correct. So you have to take that into account. And I thought Tim Walz should have really hammered it home more. And I don't think
I agree.
I don't think he was aggressive enough. And listen, this is make no mistake about it. I like Tim Walz. I think he's a really good guy. I would be totally comfortable if he's the vice president of the United States. I think he's a good man. But Kamala Harris knew coming into this thing that he was the nice guy. He's not a Shapiro.
Right.
This is what happens when you don't. This is what happens when you don't pick Shapiro. I promise you. I've predicted every single one of these debates properly. I said Harris was going to wipe the floor with Trump. She did. I said Biden's was going to have some problems with Trump. He did. And I said this debate, you're not going to have a clear winner because Vance is going to lie. I said this yesterday on the show, and Waltz isn't going to hit back strong enough because he's too nice of a guy. I said this on my show yesterday. This is
heard that.
Yeah, and this is what happens when you pick a really nice guy. And I'm not saying Josh Shapiro isn't a nice guy, but boy, you get into the mud with him, he's going to get you. And he would have destroyed Vance.
But you know what, Brian? Also, listening to Tim last night, you see the human side of him. You saw the compassion that he had, just the passion that he had. He's too nice. But you know what? I fell in love with him even more because of that.
He's a good
man. Knowing, because I follow everything, I follow the news, so I've seen J.D. Vance, and I'm sorry, he's vile. I mean, I don't know how else to put it.
So I agree.
I can't be
so you're
nice
making
there.
my point. You're making my point for me. I agree.
Yeah.
Why didn't Tim Waltz bring this up? Hey, your wife is from Indian descent. She's a lovely
Right.
lady. She's very educated. Why would your boss invite a woman who said it's going to smell like curry if Kamala Harris ever becomes president? Why didn't Waltz bring that up?
Despicable.
Yeah,
I know, that was despicable.
He needed
for
to
her.
bring
Oh,
that up, man.
yes,
He didn't bring any of this stuff
absolutely.
up, and it drives me crazy, man. Josh Shapiro would have brought that up, right? And again, I know we can't look in the past. I know we need to look forward,
Right.
but it is what it is, right? Let's hope we win in November. It is what it is, my
Yes.
dear. And I appreciate hearing
Hopefully
from
so.
you. Yes, let's hope so. And I appreciate your call. 702-221-7283 is the number to call if you want to be a part of the show. Let's go to Tom. Tom is next up on PTL. Hey, Tom, what's going on? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Brian, this is the Tom from Syracuse now.
All right.
Tom from Minnesota.
All right. Tom from Minnesota. Well, thank you for calling in. What'd you think about the debate last night?
Well, I could say this. I was just thinking about the last caller and what you were just talking about, and Minnesota Nice did rule there last night. And I would say that Joy and Nice are good for the White House. And if Tim were to ever get into the White House, I think that's what you would have.
Yeah.
A complete turnaround from what we got today. Not too many people would have a hard time going up against him, I think. But I think my criticism of him was when he was nodding his head up and down when J.D. Vance was talking. And I kept thinking, no, Tim, don't do that.
Yes,
You've
I
got
saw
to
that as
attack
well.
more.
That's a good thing that you spotted. I saw that as well. Let me tell you something. That might have worked 10 years ago. In 2024, you have to get after it. In 2024, when it comes to the MAGA Republicans, you have to go after them. And you can't I love Michelle Obama, wonderful lady, but when they go low, we go high. Doesn't work anymore, okay? That's how Hillary Clinton lost in 2016. You have to go after them. And it doesn't mean you have to call them names. You don't have to stoop to Donald Trump's level, but you have to come at them with facts and be tough. And I just don't feel like Tim Waltz did that last night.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well,
I agree.
Well, I appreciate you, Tom. Stay warm out there in Minnesota. I appreciate you calling in, my
will
friend.
do.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, bud.
Thank you.
Yep.
702-221-7283 is the number to call. Why don't we go to Carla? Carla is next up on PTL. Hi, Carla. Where are you calling from?
Hey, Brian. I'm calling from Missouri. How are you?
Well, I'm doing good, Carla. Thanks for calling in. What'd you think about the debate last night?
I was a little disappointed in the pushback that Waltz didn't do. But I will say this, the candidates are only given 2 minutes, right?
Right.
JD lied so many times. It's just too much to fact check in the 90 minutes that they were giving. And we can play Monday morning quarterback all day long, but I just couldn't keep up with the lies. But Tim was nervous. And, he did have substance in what he was saying.
Sure, I agree.
He's a very nice guy.
To be
and
fair,
I appreciate him.
To be fair to what you are saying, you are correct. He did have a lot of substance in what he was saying. J.D. Vance was lying. Unfortunately, a lot of these debates, especially today, are about, performative, right? It's performance.
Sure.
And from the performance aspect of it, J.D. Vance won. From a fact-based, at least in my opinion, from a fact-based look at it, Tim Waltz won. We need somebody that can push back. See, I thought Kamala Harris did a great job a couple weeks ago in doing that, where she gave him just enough pushback without going over the top, and also went after him with facts. And that's why she destroyed him a few weeks ago. I can't say the same about Tim Waltz.
I agree. One other thing, and I know you have to get to another caller.
Sure.
My real beef is the question that everyone keeps saying, why hasn't she done what she's done? Why hasn't she, these policies that she's trying to put forth now, why hasn't she done anything the last 3.5 years? I would love for the gentleman, there was a video on MSNBC of a student who took a civics class that most people haven't taken, obviously, or don't know how government works, that explains that the VP has no power. I want pushback on that.
I agree.
Why are all these radios and TV shows and CNN, they're not pushing that forward? Like, that is not her job.
Well, because they're idiots, and either they don't understand. You're absolutely right, my dear, and I appreciate you, Carl. Either they don't understand or they just don't want to talk about that. J.D. Vance was talking like Kamala Harris was the president of the United States the last 3.5 years. She can't push and doesn't have the same abilities that Joe Biden has had. Now, I think they can run on their record, and I think J.D. Vance lies over and over again and wants to blame them for all the inflation and the gas prices and food and everything else. That's another whole story. But, yeah, they make it sound like she's been the president of the United States. She is not Joe Biden. She is her own person, and I think that's very important to note, and that's a great point that you just brought up. 702-221-7283 is the number to call if you want to be a part of the conversation. Let's go to Jack. Jack is next up on PTL. Hey, Jack, what's going on, man?
Hey, Brian, what's going on, man?
Good.
Hey, listen, before I get to my point, I just want to make a comment. You know, me and you were on the same team, right? But what separates us from the cult is sometimes we're going to have, different opinions. And I agree she needs to get out there a little more, but I don't know what there is to gain from somebody, doing a Fox hit. No one's going to tune in the Fox that's going to give her
I disagree.
the time of day.
Okay, so
I
disagree.
Right. But I mean, I agree with you that there, you have to find where independents are tuning in. And maybe I could be wrong, man.
Well, let's talk about this. Yeah, sure. It's a good conversation. Let's talk about this. So there's no question that the overwhelming majority of those that watch Fox News religiously are MAGA supporters, right? I'm stating the obvious there. But you do have people, heck, I watch Fox News. You do have, I do that for news purposes, but to talk about it on the air, but you do have people that watch Fox News that are moderate Republicans. You do have people, not every single person that watches Fox News is going to be, all in for Donald Trump. And what you do is you allow a different type of audience to watch Kamala Harris, and maybe people that are independent, maybe people that are moderate, to watch and see how she does in handling somebody that is going to give her major pushback. I think she's more than capable of doing it. You're telling me she can't do what Gavin Newsom has done on the Sean Hannity show. So number one, I think, right. So number one, my friend, I think that you're giving a different audience an opportunity to watch her, to listen to her, and to give some of these right-wing hosts a little bit of pushback. And I'm not even talking about Fox News. Like I said, Joe Rogan. The one demo that she's not doing well is white male in this country, right? Middle-aged white men. That is Joe Rogan's base. Why not go on Joe Rogan's show? And I have no reason to believe he wouldn't treat her with respect. Why not go on Joe Rogan's show and speak to them? And, I thought one of the best interviews that Hillary Clinton did in the last 10 years was not before she ran for office, after. That interview she did with Howard Stern, where you didn't see that robotic Hillary Clinton. That's something that Howard Stern is so good at. He makes people feel comfortable. He would make her feel comfortable. I think they would have a phenomenal interview. He would ask her private, personal questions, which I don't think she would have a problem answering, maybe about her love life with her husband, how they met, so on and so forth. But we need to humanize Kamala Harris, not to see her in a situation where she's going to have to be robotic or she's going to be reading a teleprompter. And I think Howard Stern, if she doesn't want to do Fox News or her campaign doesn't want her to do that, that's okay. But now let me ask you a question. What's the negative if she did like the Howard Stern show, in your opinion?
Yeah, no, I mean, listen, I think the Howard Stern show is probably where she would need to go. I was just making a point as far as like tuning into Fox or Newsmax, like those. Like when you bring up Rogan, I'm not sure how. One-sided Rogan show. I don't listen to it myself, but I don't know how I feel about independents listening to that. I'm trying to put myself in an independent's shoes, and where would I tune in to hear? And I would do like, I guess we all do. Like, I flip back and forth from Fox to CNN, and then I go on the internet and look at things on YouTube, and
I hear what you're saying. I hear your, what's the word I'm looking for? Your hesitancy for Harris going on Fox News. Okay, I got you. We can agree maybe to disagree a little bit on that, but I understand where you're coming from. All I'm simply saying is this. She has to reach out to people that haven't decided yet or are not on her side per se, people that are not all in with her. And in order to do that, right, okay, so we agree fundamentally. Her doing MSNBC or some of these podcasts that nobody listens to are not going to help her, in my personal opinion. So she needs to do, even if we disagree on Fox News, let's forget about Fox News and Newsmax. She needs to do some podcast and some primetime interviews with some hosts and an audience that maybe isn't all in with her. And she just hasn't done that yet. And that's what I'm talking about.
Well, they both had 60 Minutes interviews coming up, and he just canceled that. Like he figures that was good enough last night. He just backed it where he got pressed the last time. He walked out. He walked out of the 60 Minutes interview.
Correct. He did.
She's still doing it, and
So
I
that's
think
good.
there'll be independents tuning into that. And I think.
I agree. That's good. But why isn't she doing 5 of those a day? That's good. I agree with you.
I agree with you
this
on that.
morning.
She should be everywhere.
Where was she this morning? Why didn't she do a 5 or a 10-minute hit on Fox and Friends this morning talking about Tim Walz? Why wasn't she doing that interview and then Joe Rogan and then Howard Stern? Why wasn't she going on all these shows this morning? What is she doing? I'm frustrated.
I guess you're
That's
right.
all.
She's accomplished. She can answer the questions. I think she. I'm worried about what waters. Don't waste your time fishing waters where there's not.
Well, then don't go on his show. He's a clown.
You're saying just bomb the system, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah. Well,
I'm
Jesse,
gonna get her out there.
Make no mistake about it. And by the way, I appreciate the call. I'm not saying she should go on Jesse Waters. Do Neil Cavuto's show, right? Go on Fox and Friends. I'm not saying she has to go on some real lunatics shows. That's not what I'm saying. I wouldn't expect that. But you can still go on the network, right? I appreciate the call. 702-221-7283 is the number to call if you want to be a part of the conversation. All right, who are we going to next here? Let's go to Shakira. Shakira is next up on PTL. Hi, Shakira. What's going on, man?
Hi, it's Shakira.
Shakira, I apologize. Shakira.
You're good.
What's going on? Thanks for calling. What's on your mind? What do you think about the debate last night?
So I think it was okay. Like you said, I don't think it's going to move the needle much. I definitely wish that they would have the moderators were fact checking, because that would have helped a lot. Me and my husband were sitting there watching, and I was like, isn't that a lie? Like all of the stuff that JD Vance was saying, and nobody was saying that it was lies. So, but I understand how Tim Walz could not, he couldn't sit there the whole time and just say everything he's saying is lies. So I think he did the best he could. It just wasn't.
So I agree with
like
you.
You said, he missed a lot.
I agree with you, Shakira. He probably did the best he could. I'm not sure. I'm not sure it was good enough. It is what it is. It already happened. I like Tim Walz. I think he's a nice man. Sometimes we need a little bit of not nice. Sometimes, I get messages from people every day who watch this show. I'd like to think of myself as a nice guy as a whole, but I get frustrated with people. I call them out, and sometimes I'm not so nice. That's my style. That's what I do. Some people like it. Some people don't like it. We needed a little bit of that yesterday. We needed a little bit of aggression. I know that's not who Tim Walz is. Listen, we'll see what happens in November, but we can control what we can control, and Kamala Harris and her campaign can control which interview she does, and I just.
But as far as the interviews too, I do agree with you. She needs to do more. She needs to bomb the system, but I think they're going to come up with things that are honestly, they're going to come up with something that she did wrong every time.
Okay, so give me an example. Pretend I'm Kamala Harris right now, and you're that fool, Sean Hannity or Jesse Waters. Give me an example and ask me something, and then I'll tell you the appropriate way that she should answer it. But go ahead. Let's do that.
So if you're if you're not the borders are, why have you still not done anything about the border? Why haven't you fired the person that is there that's not doing their job?
Sure. First of all, what I would talk about, which she does talk about, is the border bill. I would say we had this border bill in effect. We worked hard with MAGA Republicans to put this border bill together. It was endorsed by border security, and Donald Trump shot it down. If I become the next president of the United States, I'm going to make sure we get that passed, and I'm going to get those Republicans back in the Oval Office, and let's get this thing done. Number two, I would talk about all the countries that I've been speaking with and all the countries that I've been working with to try to help when people are in this country illegally, those that are seeking asylum, to make it easier for people that go through the normal process, and also, again, more security at the border. The things are not perfect. There are things that we need to do and steps we need to take. And when I become president of the United States, we are going to do this, this, and this. But I think that's the best way that she can answer that question. And you have to be able to answer those questions if you want to be the next president.
I think that's true. They don't make Trump answer them, though.
Well, you're right about that. Yeah, it's not like Trump is doing any interviews with the opposition, that's for sure. But I appreciate you calling in, and let's see what happens. Let's see if she takes my advice and your advice on that. 702-221-7283 is the number to call. Let's go to Janelle. Janelle is next up on PTL. Hi, Janelle. Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from North Carolina.
Well, thank you. Oh, Mark Robinson country. What a nice, lovely man he is.
Oh, yeah, I know. Yeah, I'm loving every minute. I'm down by 20 points already. He's going to get his butt kicked on election night, I tell you.
Who would vote for that guy? Who would vote for a black Nazi? I mean, that's incredible
to me.
Yeah.
Anybody voting for that guy. Good. Absolutely not.
Good.
Nobody's voting for him.
Good.
But, I found J.D. Vance to be very smarmy, disingenuous. And I know that a lot of people, the general consensus is that he came across that way. Yes, in terms of the performative, clearly the guy is a seasoned debater, even though, he's taken a page right out of the Trump handbook. I think, I watched a podcast that you were on last night. I can't remember the name of it.
Don Lemon. Don Lemon. Yeah.
Yes, I watched a little bit of that last night to get some of the reaction, and I know that there was a lot of feedback about Kamala Harris not doing enough interviews.
Yeah, I started that. That's my fault.
Yeah, no, you're good. I could see poor Anna seething at the mouth at some of the stuff. Not that what you were saying, but what some of the other guys were saying that.
Yeah.
On one hand, the media, I think the term is cock blocking, was the term used. The media cock blocking Kamala Harris and giving Trump all of the airtime. Every day there's always something else with him. And then somebody else mentioned that he's flooding the zone. Well, I think that he's actually oversaturated the zone. I think people are on fatigue.
Yeah.
It's like phase 5 of the Marvel movies. Nobody wants to see that anymore.
I hear you.
You know what I mean?
I do know what you mean, but here's the problem. And I said this last night on Don Lemon's show. We only have 5 weeks left to go here. And I was asked, what do you want to see from the Harris campaign? Well, you can't make any more excuses about, everything's so new and she just found out she's running. No, she's had enough time now. There are no more excuses.
Sure.
You need to do more interviews.
Absolutely.
She's not doing enough interviews. And not because we need to find out about what policies she supports and this and that. We need to humanize her in a way, and we need to find out who the person is. And I'm not quite sure many Americans know that yet. Now, I think she's a wonderful lady. She's a happily married woman. She's a good mother. I know enough about her to be, and listen, I'm very anti-Trump, but I think I have a good idea of who she is. But there's a lot of Americans that don't. And she's got to get out there and she's got to do more interviews. Why didn't she do interviews this morning? I don't understand that.
Yeah, and I get what you're saying. From what I understand, she is doing 60 Minutes this weekend, from what I hear.
Yeah. But it's one interview. That's one. She should have done 5
It is one
today.
interview. Yes, yeah. Agreed. But I also find it interesting that there's comparisons to her to Hillary Clinton. What I'm more interested in is seeing the data points, like what she is doing compared to what Joe Biden did in 2020. And
I'm going to say something that I hear you, but I'm going to say
Yeah.
something that a lot of people might not like, but I'm going to say it anyway. It's hard enough to run for president of the United States or run for any powerful position if you're a woman. It's hard.
Absolutely.
It's harder when you're a woman of color. So she has a lot, and I wish that wasn't the case, right? I wish people could.
It's true.
But it's true, and we have to be honest with one another here. She's fighting that. And how do you fight that? I think she's doing a good job. She did a great job.
There's no Benghazi, though.
Correct.
There's no Benghazi that's going to cost her the election, though.
I understand, but when I compare it to Hillary Clinton, it is this way. I don't want her campaign to make the same mistakes that the Hillary Clinton campaign did. Now, I will give her credit for this. She's going to all the battleground states. She's campaigning hard. I give her campaign.
Hillary did not do that.
Correct.
Yeah.
So she has that one up on Hillary Clinton. That's a great thing, right? But again, Hillary also made the mistake of not doing those interviews that she should have done. And Donald Trump was everywhere. I feel like she has to do more. I know I keep saying this over and over again, but I'm going to keep saying it. She has to do more interviews, right?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I get it.
We're on the same page there, and I appreciate you tuning into the Don Lemon Show last night. I had a lot of fun doing that. 702-221-7283. John is next. Hey, John, thanks for calling in, my man. What's on your mind today? What's going on?
Hi, Brian. I just want to push back a little bit.
Sure.
I think the strategy may have been that we've already have a lock on our core, our base. What are we going to do to show that we can reach over the aisle and get the agenda accomplished?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that Waltz was being conciliatory and a little less pushback because he didn't want to come off as the sort of rah-rah coach thing. We're going to slam you in the whatever.
I don't think it's
okay,
but can I just this is where we disagree. I don't think people would have looked at him as the rah-rah coach. They would have looked at him as somebody that is holding J.D. Vance accountable and giving him major pushback. I'm not saying you have to act like a lunatic coach because I don't think that's who J.D.
Yeah.
I don't think that's who Tim Waltz is.
Yeah.
But I hear what you're saying. You don't want to come off of that negative, rah-rah coach. I get what you're saying, but I don't think he would have come off that way. I just wanted a little bit more pushback, and I thought he was nervous.
Well, that's true.
Yeah.
They had focus groups at the end, and they had the undecideds, and some of that was Waltz positive. So maybe his strategy did work.
But who did it work with? Who did it work with?
I think I think it worked with people that were undecided. I think it worked with people that are undecided.
So hold on, let's talk about that. So you think, and this is your opinion, but listen, I don't go by 5 or 10 people that a guy like a Frank Luntz interviews because I don't really pay attention to that. But you really think, honestly, that after watching that debate last night, you think Tim Waltz won over a bunch of independents and undecided people?
I wouldn't discount that too much. And the reason why I say that is because, and believe me, this is just, anecdotal, but a lot of the independents that I've run across seem to have tuned out of the election because they're afraid of the adversarial nature of it.
Yeah.
The divisiveness has turned them off, and actually fearfully so. So I think that may be a good strategy. I believe me.
Okay, well, listen. I hope you're right. It's not like I hope you're wrong, right? I hope you're right, my friend. I'm just not so sure. I agree. I hope you're right, and I hope I'm wrong. I just don't think this moved the needle for anybody. I'm talking about J.D. Vance also. I don't think this really changed anybody's mind.
I think what it did. I think it may have. There are people that may have been pulled in a little bit by the rhetoric of J.D. Vance. He came off to be like a Peter Thiel brotocracy liar.
Well, he is. He is. He is. Yeah.
But I think that if you look at the abortion issue, you look at the gun control, and you look definitely at the election denial, that's where he tanked himself.
Agree.
All the other points were complete noise. Complete noise coming from
Well,
him.
I agree, but I predicted that was going to happen. So listen. I don't disagree with you on that point, right? When it comes to guns, when it comes to abortion, when it comes to election denying, those are really important issues. J.D. Vance failed up there on that debate stage on that aspect of it. I agree. I just thought Tim Waltz could have hit him a little bit harder on those issues. That's all I'm saying. I hope you're right, my friend. We'll find out in 5 weeks. 702-221-7283 is the number to call. Let's go to Deborah. Deborah's next. Hey, Deborah, where are you calling from?
Hi, I'm calling from the west coast of Central Florida.
All right. Well, I hope you're doing all right out there.
Oh man, it was scary.
Yeah, I'm glad you're okay. What'd you make of the debate last night, Deborah?
Well, I was getting real upset with Waltz's expression on his face. It was like, what the hell?
Gosh, that's interesting. You're not the first person.
Don't look at him like that. Like,
Yeah, you're not the first person to bring up his facial expressions. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And of course, just like you've been saying, it was he didn't go at him at anything. There were so many things to bring up.
Well, let me say this. I can't really speak to this, but Tim Waltz at times had the face of any female that has to look at Donald Trump with his shirt off. Yeah, I'll leave a little levity in there. I had to do it, but yeah, I understand. I understand where you're going with that. I do.
Yeah, I just there was just like, why don't you ask him about this or that? Or
he was nervous. He was nervous
about what he talking about the dogs and cats, and what upheaval that caused.
He didn't even bring that up, really. I mean,
I know
there were a couple seconds. I'm like, you have Mr. Vance. Okay, if I'm Tim Waltz, which I'm not. Mr. Vance, Senator, you are part of the main reason why there were over 30, I think it was over 50 threats in that community. You now have litigation, civil and criminal charges filed against you for spreading lies about Springfield, Ohio. That's all I wanted Tim Walz to say.
Yes.
I just thought there was
to have to call in extra police, and they had to close schools.
Right.
And hospitals got evacuated. You can imagine financially what that must have all been, besides scaring people half out of their mind.
Yeah, I don't know why Walz didn't bring that up. I'm amazed.
I don't either. That was very frustrating.
He didn't bring up Donald Trump. Right, that was just one. He didn't bring up Donald Trump's visit to the hurricane sites, lying about Joe Biden's interaction with governors. He didn't bring up the 34 felony counts, the liable sexual abuse, the cat lady comments that J.D. Vance brought up, attacking all Americans for not having kids. He didn't bring up any of that stuff.
Any of it. He was too nice.
Right.
Like you say, he's a really nice guy.
I predicted it.
Way too nice.
I said this was going to happen yesterday. This was my prediction. I said there wouldn't be a clear-cut winner. J.D. Vance would be smooth with his lies and propaganda, and Tim Walz would be a too much of a nice guy, and that's exactly what happened last night. I warned everybody. I said this was going to happen.
You were right.
Yeah.
You were right.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you, except that the good news is we still have 5 more weeks to go. The good news is Tim Walz is a good guy. He is on the right side of history when it comes to a number of different issues. And I hope, I'm worried, but I hope there's more people like you in this country that are going to make the right decision in November. If we get a bad decision in November, it's not going to ruin my show. I don't want Donald Trump to be anywhere near the White House. It's not going to ruin what I do for a living. It's not going to ruin my life. I'm not going to be sitting here crying. I'll be very disappointed. Because quite frankly, mentally, it's going to be exhausting to have to cover this guy for another 4 years. But it's not going to ruin my life. I'm not going to be emotionally crying. I'm probably, if anything, I'll be positively emotional if Kamala Harris wins. Thank you for the call, dear. I'm glad you're doing okay out there in Florida. 702-221-7283 is the number to call. Let's go to Kevin. Kevin is next up on PTL. Hi, Kevin. Where are you calling from?
Hi, I'm coming from Florida.
How you doing out there? You doing all right?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good. I feel like you. I feel like just about everybody who's called. At the same time, Brian, I just can't. It always bothers me how low the bar is for Vance. And that ticket, the bar is so low that all he had to do was go out there and normalize this ticket, normalize himself and Trump. And he did that. But that's not hard to do. Policy didn't matter. This didn't matter. Nothing mattered but going out. And of course, Walz did help him along in doing that.
Right.
But that's all he had to do was normalize.
Kevin, you are so right. Isn't the bar so low? I mean, I agree with you. It's so low with Donald Trump and the lies. I mean, you had a vice presidential candidate up there on a stage last night who couldn't even say that Donald Trump lost in 2020. It's so disgraceful.
Unbelievable. Yeah, Brian, you would have thought that Vance was up there on a ticket with Mitt Romney. I mean, don't normalize. There's nothing normal about any of this.
But I will say this. You're right. But I will say this. We had Joe Walsh to start the show. J.D. Vance did a pretty good job at attempting to normalize his nutty boss, Donald Trump, and that's unfortunate, but he did do a good job in doing that, or the best job he could have.
Well, not surprising. I expected it. He's a Yale grad. Everything. I expected him to come out here and do exactly what he did, but I expected Walz to bite back a bit, and he did.
Who he is. It's not who he is.
It's not who he is, and he was, but on the other side of it, he did come across as a empathetic, a compassionate man. You could see it in his eyes. I hope everybody saw it. I don't think it moved it.
You know what I would love to see? Kamala Harris debate J.D. Vance. Would have gone differently, wouldn't have? It would have gone differently.
Well, how about Josh Shapiro for that? That kept entering my mind too.
Listen, it entered my mind all night when I was watching the debate. I said it then, and I still feel it now. Now, even though we are beyond that now, this debate would have been a complete 180 if Kamala Harris picked Josh Shapiro. I said it was a mistake then. I still feel it's a mistake now. If she wins, all is forgiven. If she loses, I'm going to be upset that she didn't pick Josh Shapiro. Josh Shapiro would have wiped the floor, clean with J.D. Vance last night. That is not what took place. She picked Tim Walz. You reap what you sow. You better win in November.
She will. Thanks, Brian.
I hope so. Thank you for the call, my friend. 702-221-7283. Let's go to Billie Jean, who is not my lover. Billie Jean, thanks for calling in. What's on your mind? How you doing, Billie Jean? How
I
are
wasn't
you?
expecting that.
Where are you calling from, Billie Jean?
Colorado.
Colorado. All right. Well, thank you so much for calling in. What'd you think of the debate last night?
Oh, I was actually not real pleased by it. They had it in more control than what Trump normally does. I was hoping for a big, huge fail on him.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting that to happen, Billie Jean. I got to be honest with you. I made the prediction yesterday. The debate went exactly the way I thought it was going to go. And
yeah, you are right. That part. I've been watching social media. I support y'all big time. But the one thing that's throwing me off that I never see mentioned is we're telling him exactly what to say and what to do. Do you understand?
We're telling who what to say and what to do?
Trump.
Yeah, I mean, Donald Trump won't listen to anybody. He is his own person, that's for sure. And he's not changing. If you don't know who Donald Trump is, the human being, by now, then you'll never know.
No.
And I wish there was another debate. He's a coward. He doesn't want any piece of Kamala Harris. And I think that speaks volumes. Harris has already said she's agreed to another debate. He won't do it.
No, he won't. He never will.
He's a coward. He's a coward. Whatever happened to any time, any place. Remember when he said that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, whatever happened to that. Yeah, and you can't make the excuse about not doing a debate on CNN and they're going to treat him unfairly, because we all know they treated him more than fairly against Joe Biden. So he can't use that excuse anymore. He's afraid. He's scared.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
He's dodging her just like he dodged the military.
Oh, always.
Well,
I don't get the followers. I'm sorry.
Well, I don't either, Billie Jean, but I'm glad that there are people like you out there. And we need to do our job, and that is in November. We need to get out there and vote. I'm ready. I can't wait. Thank you for the call, 702-221-7283. So we have more people waiting on hold. We're going to get to all of our calls, and I will probably went a little bit long there. Here's what I want to do. Why don't we take a break first? Got to take one more break, and then we'll get to all the calls on the other side. Do we have one phone line open? No, we don't. No, we don't. They're full again. But we are going to take more calls on the other side of the break. I promise you. I ask you all to check out my new website, pushingthelimits.live. Again, that website is pushingthelimits.live. Where are my MAGA callers? I know we have a lot of MAGA listeners because they hit me up on social media every day attacking me. Why won't you call into the show? Are you afraid? Are you afraid to debate me like Donald Trump, your Lord and Savior, is afraid to debate Kamala Harris again? Why don't you show some cojones and call into the show and tell me why you think J.D. Vance won? Because I see a lot of you hitting me up on social media, but then when it comes to more than just putting up a sentence or two on X, you don't want to call into the show. I do find that very interesting. We have somebody from Australia that's on hold, which is cool. We'll get to all the callers next. Mark, Mary, others calling in as well. Check out my new website, pushingthelimits.live. As I say before and I say again, that's how you can help support what we do here on Pushing the Limits. If you go to pushingthelimits.live, you'll see you can sign up for the free newsletter, but you can also check out some merchandise that we sell on there, shirts, hats, beanies. If you don't want to buy any merchandise, the good news is you can also donate. Doesn't matter whether it's $5, $10, or $20 on the front page, pushingthelimits.live, you will see an opportunity where you can donate on the show. $5, $10, $20 to donate to the show to help us keep the lights on. We're an independently run radio show. Check us out, pushingthelimits.live. We'll take a quick break. We'll get to your callers on the other side. Get to our callers, I should say, on the other side. It's Pushing the Limits right here on KSH.
In these uncertain times, we need a leader who puts policy over politics.
I'm Ron Quince. I am beyond the bickering and what we see today. I am running to fight for your values, faith, family, and freedom.
Ron Quince stands for safe borders, lower taxes, and lower prices.
Let's take our country back, one community, one vote at a time. I am Ron Quince, and I'm asking for your vote because every vote matters. I am Ron Quince, and I approve this message.
Have you ever dreamed of having your own radio show or a podcast, but just didn't think it was possible? Well, dreams can come true. Radio U. Radio U is a 5-day course that'll teach you how to acquire your dream show. We'll teach you how to host, how to write commercial, how to interview, how to market, how to write a contract, and most importantly, how to monetize your dream radio show. You'll learn from some of the best in the business with over 75 years in broadcast experience. You'll learn from people like me. And the best part? Every single student will be live on the radio as part of the class. Plus, one student from each class will get their very own radio show. You'll be live on the air right here in Las Vegas. Radio U. The 5-day course is being offered at $699. For more information, give Radio U a call. 702-763-5024. That's 702-763-5024. Or check them out at radioyou101.com.
Tired of the same old date night? Craving a deeper connection with your partner? O-Box is your escape into a world of romance and passion. Each month, discover a box filled with personalized surprises, exciting activities, and a love story written just for the two of you. Ignite desire, share laughter, and make memories that last a lifetime. Your O-Box journey culminates into a beautiful love novel. Ready to write the first thrilling chapter? Let the O-Box adventure begin. Visit our website, obox.com. That's OBOXXX.com and get started.
Hey everybody, are you struggling to find a pizza place that reminds you of Brooklyn? That true blue New York style pie? Well, worry no more. Stallone's Italian Eatery Pizza is a knockout. We're located at 467 East Silverado Ranch Boulevard, just off of Premium Road, half a mile east of South Point Casino, just minutes from the Las Vegas Strip. Come by and grab a slice of pie. Plus, check out our Brooklyn-inspired Italian cuisine. Our sandwiches are super. Hero, that is. Because why be a sub when you can be a hero? Stallone's Italian Eatery is here to serve you phenomenal food, Vegas. Forget about it.
All right, welcome back. It is Pushing the Limits on a Wednesday. Thank you so much for joining us. Programming note, Mr. Bernie Sanders will be joining us on the show on Friday. You're not going to want to miss that. Now, I'm going to ask Bernie Sanders, do you think that Harris should do more interviews? Bernie Sanders is a guy, he'll go on any network. He goes on Fox News, CNN, he goes everywhere. So I love Bernie Sanders. I think he's a really good man. So he'll be joining us on the show on Friday. And I want to remind all of you, the official gaming bar of Pushing the Limits is Jackson's Bar and Grill, located at Flamingo and Jones. Man, they got some great promotions this month, including every Sunday from noon to 8 a.m. If you earn 350 points playing a machine, you're going to get $50 in free slot play. Great food, great atmosphere, the official gaming bar of the Pushing the Limits radio show. Jackson's Bar and Grill. Go out there and tell them that I sent you. We are going to be taking some more phone calls here at 702-221-7283. Where are my MAGA callers? Every day on social media, I get people that attack me. Par for the course. It's okay. I'm a public figure. I do a national radio show. It's okay. But yet they don't have the guts, I should say. Some do, and I give them credit, even though, it doesn't always go well for them. I give them credit for calling in. Why can't all these MAGA supporters use their little Trump fingers to call in? I don't do a left-wing echo chamber show. I interview Republicans every day on this show usually. I interview more Republicans than Democrats. We do have Bernie Sanders on Friday, but for the most part, I interview a lot of Republicans on this show. Where are you? You afraid? You don't have the guts to go toe-to-toe? Well, I understand, because most of you probably aren't that intelligent to begin with. But anyway, 702-221-7283 is the number to call. Kristen is calling all the way from Australia. Kristen, thank you so much for tuning in and listening. How are you?
I'm all right, Brian. It's 6:30 in the morning here, though, so I might not be totally coherent, but I'm glad to talk to you.
Thank you for calling in and listening from Australia. I appreciate you. What's on your mind today?
Well, I am American, but I've been living in Australia for about 20 years now. I did watch the debate the first 15 minutes, but I had to turn it off. I could not listen to Vance anymore. He just reminds me so much of like that creepy guy in high school that all the girls stayed away from. I just couldn't, you know. But it's beside the point. I've been listening to what your other callers have been saying as well. But I guess the reason I call is because I have the outsider's perspective here, and even though I am still American, and the view from outside is really dire. The rest of the world, I feel like, is genuinely afraid of another Trump USA. It does affect us. It affects the rest of the world, for better or worse. What happens in the U.S. affects all of us. The other 7.5 billion people on this planet are affected by what Trump will do over there. I like to say, and I have been saying for about the last 9 years, he's like a malignant cancer that's been spreading. And it's been affecting people here. Like, it's affecting relationships here, all the way on the other side of the planet. You know, during COVID, all those weirdo sort of cave dwellers that you never hear from have been feeling empowered by him. So, you know, the neo-Nazis and the bigots and the freaks and the weirdos have been coming out literally flying Trump flags. I'm seeing them here. You know, where they have their protests and their rallies, excuse me, anti-immigration, all of that. They're flying flags with Trump's face on it. And in Australia, you know, it doesn't make any sense, but these people buy into his mentality, and it's affecting us here as well. I can definitely feel a shift in attitudes in people here who support him. You know, the place just isn't as friendly as it used to be. And one of your previous callers said they want joy and nice. It'd be good for the White House, but it would be good for the whole world. It's really affecting everybody. And sorry, I don't want to take up all your time. I have so many thoughts about this, but it's just that it's doing a serious damage to the U.S.'s credibility around the world. And there are frequent conversations here, at least, about do we remain so closely aligned to the U.S. if this guy is in charge? Yeah. We live in China's backyard, you know, and up until now, we've always counted on the U.S. as sort of like the buffer between us and them. Right. But now there's talk about aligning more towards China. And we're already seeing that in the smaller Pacific nations and some of the less wealthy nations around the world who feel like they can't rely on the U.S. anymore, so they're turning to China for things. This is what this guy's going to do. You know, he's going to shift the balance of power in the entire world, and I think people really need to think about that. It's not just what happens over there.
You know, you bring up a really good perspective and a good point, because people think it only affects the United States of America if Donald Trump is reelected. No, it doesn't. You're living in Australia, and you're absolutely right. This affects the entire world. First of all, the love letters that he sends to somebody like Kim Jong-un, for whatever reason, not rooting for Ukraine to win this war. He won't even answer the question. He always seems to side with Vladimir Putin. He did nothing but praise the president of China during COVID, which I thought was an abomination. For some reason, he sucks up to evil, murderous dictators, and then world leaders all over the world, many of them who, and they're right, they don't respect Donald Trump, and they shouldn't. So this is bad, not just for America. You're absolutely right. It's bad for people all over the world, including you. And, you know, I'm so glad you called and gave your perspective, and we need to remember that. What would you say to somebody in America that would say to you, living in Australia, this doesn't affect you, stay out of American politics? What would you say to them?
I can easily answer that, because the last 20 years I've been hearing that. And it does affect me because, first of all my family's still there. All my lifelong friends are still there. You know, what happens in the U.S. economy affects us here. If the U.S. gets sucked into a war, Australian troops end up going too. You know, it affects everybody.
Yeah.
I mean, the U.S., I mean, I know the attitude because I'm from there. I know that people in the U.S. believe it's the greatest place on earth and it's the world leader. And the thing is, it is. Everybody follows us. And there's only, when you think about who wants Trump to win from outside, it's China, it's Russia, it's North Korea, it's Iran. You got to think about that. Why do they want him in and everybody else doesn't?
It's such a great point.
I mean,
yeah,
it's just, they want him because they know that the U.S. will tear itself apart from the inside. It's deliberate, and it affects everybody. and it affects the people I care about, that I grew up with. And by the way, as an aside, I still do a tax return to the U.S. because it's the only country in the world that doesn't care where you live. So, and I can still vote there. So it matters to me.
Well, it matters to me,
These
and
things will affect me.
I'm so glad you called in from Australia. It humbles me that you listen in Australia. Please call back again. Great phone call, and everything you said, I completely agree with, and we need to hear from people like you as well. Even though you're not going to be voting,
all right,
we need to hear from people like you.
I did. No.
Oh, you are?
I did vote. I send an absentee ballot.
Oh, you do?
I don't know whether or not it's going to get counted.
I was
100%.
unaware. I was unaware, and so your vote, your vote counts as well. Whether it counts or not, your opinion certainly matters. And I'm so glad you called in, my dear. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks. Take care.
You too.
And good luck.
Thank you. Yeah, we are going to need a little bit of luck come November, aren't we? Nice to hear people calling in from all over the world, not just all over the country. 702-221-7283. Where are my MAGA supporters? Geez, I wonder where they're at. Where are they hiding? They must be in the bunker. Let's go to Dennis. Dennis is next up. Hey, Dennis, where are you calling from?
Seattle.
Seattle. I spent a little time in Seattle working for Cairo Radio. How are you? Thanks for calling in. What's on your mind today?
Hey, a couple things, Brian. First off, I got a new name for the orange turd. It's Agent Orange.
I like that one. I'll use that one.
Okay, and then, this morning I was flipping through the channels, and I saw the dummy on there, and he was saying that he was raised by middle-class parents. Well, I thought he said before his grandmother raised him. I mean, who raised him?
Well, let me tell you something. J.D. Vance is very confused. I think he's very confused sexually. I think he's very confused with his background. I think he's very confused every day when he decides which eyeliner he's going to be wearing. He's very confused when he goes to a store that involves furniture, particularly couches. And I also think he's very confused because he doesn't know whether he should defend his wife or defend Orange Man. So, he's a very confused individual. Very confused is J.D. Vance.
And I think he has to ask the Agent Orange one.
Yeah.
What he's going to wear.
Yeah. Hey, can I ask you? There are a lot of conservative morons that have done radio shows or continue to do radio shows in Seattle. I used to work with an idiot named Dory Munson. I used to work with some morons over there at Cairo Radio in Seattle, right-wing conservative talk show hosts that were dry as a doornail, boring, no personality. And I worked with some people over there that were wonderful people. But I got to tell you, there are some conservative morons that are on the air in Seattle. Did I lose you? Oh, okay. I was talking about some of the conservative radio hosts there in Seattle that I wasn't very fond of, but I do appreciate your call, my friend, calling out of Seattle. Thank you so much. 702-221-7283 is the number to call. Let's go to Patrick. Patrick is next up on PTL. Hello, Patrick.
Go on, Brian. How you holding up, buddy?
Patrick, I want to give you a compliment to start the show. Can I do that? Or to start this call? Can I do that?
Oh, yeah, sure, buddy.
While we might disagree a lot on issues, and you've called into this show before, I do appreciate the fact that you are willing to call in and having a debate with me. That is more than I can say. And I was just giving him a call. I was just giving a compliment, and then he hung up. Patrick, please call back. Patrick is a MAGA supporter. He calls into the show. And Patrick, please call back. We lost you there. I don't know what happened to our line, but I don't know if it was anything on our end or your end. But please do us a favor and call back. That was not intentional. We apologize for that. Please call back. 702-221-7283. Let's go to Mary. Mary's next up on PTL. Hey, Mary, what's going on?
Hey there. I'm calling in from Colorado. I used to start listening about a month ago, and I really like your guys' show. I have some family up in Las Vegas. So,
thank you.
Yeah. But I want to call to talk about last night's debate. I know you guys don't have a ton of time left. I'm a Kamala voter. I'm glad that she's in the race. I'm really glad that Biden stepped away because I was really worried for a while. And so I'm so glad that Kamala stepped in. But I am a bit concerned after last night's debate because of Tim Walz's performance. And just not sure what's going to happen. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm concerned as well. I don't know what's going to happen. I can give you my predictions, but I don't think the debate last night moved the needle either direction. And quite frankly, when Kamala Harris says she's the underdog, you need to have your vice presidential nominee put together, in my opinion, a better performance than what he did last night. I'm not saying he lost the debate, but I'm not sure he won the debate. And, when you call yourself the underdog, you have to win debates. Kamala Harris did the job, and she did that. I don't think he did that, quite frankly.
Well, all I could say is I would love to see her and Trump do another debate, but as we all know, Trump won't do one unless it's on Fox News. So,
right. Well, he won't even do Brett Baer. He won't even. There's people on Fox News that don't kiss his ass that he won't even be involved with because he's a coward. He's a coward. Let's call it for what it is. He's a coward. Yeah, he is.
Well, our early voting starts soon. I know you guys over in Nevada. You guys start early voting fairly soon too, right?
Yes. So you got to if you're not going to show up on election day, then make sure you put in that ballot, no doubt. And I appreciate your call. Good to hear from you. 702-221-7283. What happened to my MAGA caller? He says hello and then he hangs up the phone. What happened there? Patrick, call back. Let's go to Sean. Sean is next up on PTL. Hi, Sean. What's going on, man?
My MAGA caller. How's it going?
Hey, good, man. What's on your mind today?
Let's go to Sean. Yeah, there are a couple things I want to talk about. The facts are in our favor.
Okay, go ahead. Lower your radio a little bit because we got a little bit of a delay, my man. So that would probably help you out. Can you do that?
Gotcha.
Okay, go ahead.
Are you with me now?
Yes, go right ahead. Go ahead.
All right. The facts are in our favor. Yes, I would have liked Governor Walz to have done a better job pointing it out, but at the same time, I believe that he showed the American people that we are normal. We're not weird.
Sure. I agree, but that still doesn't change my opinion that I don't think he won the debate.
No. I don't think his purpose was to win the debate. I believe his purpose was to not hurt the nominee.
I don't okay. That's an interesting perspective. I don't think he hurt Kamala Harris, but I'm not sure he helped the campaign either. I think that's an interesting, he didn't hurt. I don't believe he hurt Kamala Harris. But I'm not sure. I don't think J.D. Vance hurt Donald Trump either. I think J.D. Vance has been hurting Donald Trump over the last several months. That's an interesting perspective, though, and I'll take that perspective, and I don't necessarily think you're wrong on that. So I appreciate your call. All right, let's go to Patrick. Patrick is next up on PTL. Hello, Patrick.
Hey, thanks for having me back, man. Good to see you. Good to talk to you again, Brian. How you been?
I'm doing okay, Patrick. I appreciate you calling in. Patrick is a MAGA supporter. Patrick, what did you think about the debate last night?
I think you're spot on with your analysis. I think at the end of the day, I really don't think a VP debate really does much one way or the other. I thought JD was very polished, though. I thought he's a good debater, and he came across very well. I think he has a bright future based on the performance we saw yesterday.
Can I ask you this, though, Patrick, as a Trump supporter, do you have a problem with the fact that that J.D. Vance wouldn't answer whether Trump lost the 2020 election or not? Does that bother you at all?
Well, I think it's a touchy subject just because I think some of the exit polls as far as Republicans go, I think the vast majority of Republicans don't believe the official narrative. They have reason or, circumstantial evidence that they
they're wrong.
Want to believe that.
Yeah, they're wrong.
They're wrong. But politically speaking, you do have to understand that the vast majority of his base.
Okay, so Patrick, I get what you're saying. So basically what you're saying, Patrick, is I'm okay with my VP not telling the truth because the base of Republicans believe a lie. I mean, Patrick, am I getting you right? Yeah. That's really what you're saying. Am I wrong?
Okay. I mean, if that's how you want to perceive it, then,
how can you? Well, how can we? Well, help me out, Patrick. How can we perceive it any differently?
This is the concern I would have for you and y'all's side right now. Is the news cycle is being consumed with what's happened in the Middle East, and now these union ports are all on strike. All the ports are being closed. That's not good going into a election just 3-4 weeks ago. And
well, hold on, Patrick.
A part of this administration,
Patrick. First of all,
20% approval ratings. I just don't see how this is good for her.
Okay, so Patrick, hang on, Patrick. So war is not good at any time, whether it's 5 weeks before an election or whether somebody just got elected. Innocent people are dying. So I would say, forget about the political aspects of this. Innocent people are dying. It's terrible. Innocent people died when Trump was president also. I don't want to make that political, okay? What I will say is that on the debate stage last night, Vance was blaming Kamala Harris for Hamas attacking Israel. Patrick, come on, man. That's just ridiculous. That's ridiculous. You think these people in Hamas...
Hey, Hey, Brian, I'm not trying to put blame on anybody for the events that are taking place, the union strike or what's going on in the Middle East. I'm just saying, going into an election a couple of weeks ago, that could never be good for the current administration, and that's why Biden's polling in the low 20s, mid 20s is approval rating.
He's not running against Joe Biden. So, you know.
I know, but I just that is the administration that she's a part of, and she's been in all the rooms for all the decisions, and she's made.
Okay, but here's my problem. Okay, but here's my I hear what you're saying, but here's my problem, right? Going into the 2020 election, I didn't hear a lot of MAGA Republicans talking about COVID. I didn't hear them talking about Donald Trump's lack thereof response to COVID. So I agree with you. When you're going out of a global pandemic, or in this case, you have wars, it's a very difficult spot for Joe Biden. But I think what Kamala Harris has working for her, and by the way, I don't blame Joe Biden for what's going on in the Middle East now, but what Kamala Harris has working for her is she's not Joe Biden. Donald Trump is not running against Joe Biden. He's running against Kamala Harris.
Yeah, but Joe Biden has talked about how she's been there for all the big decisions, and that.
What big decisions okay, so let's go with that. She was the last one to be in the room for the Afghanistan withdrawal decision. Okay, but we're talking about Israel now, right? What big decision has Joe Biden made that you would say would have caused this war to happen?
Brian, you obviously I agree with you. I never put blame on this administration, but there's a lot of people politically speaking will look at the news cycle and what's going on in the world and say, hey, we need to change.
Well, there's a lot of people. Then my response to that is there's a lot of people politically speaking that are very ill-informed and uneducated, and those people are called MAGA supporters.
Well, that's not really a good rebuttal, and I don't know that that's going to.
No, I think it is. I think it is. When people don't have a problem, Patrick, when people don't have a problem with the vice president nominee saying who won the 2020 election, when he won't talk about climate change and he won't answer direct questions, then his response to gun control is we need to harden our schools and have harder windows and doors. The average American should have a problem with that, and the people that don't have a problem with that are MAGA supporters.
Didn't Waltz talk about he knows a lot of school shooters?
No,
what was that?
He said he befriended again. A talking point, which I already discussed on this show. He said he befriended a school shooter, and the reason why he did that was to try to get into their mind, to try to figure out why they did what they did, and try to understand so we can deter or help deter more of these school shootings. Why would you turn that into a bad thing? He's not trying to get a school shooter out of jail. What he's doing is he's trying to understand why they did what they did, to try to have an understanding, to try to stop something like that from happening, which, by the way, I would endorse. And then your guy, J.D. Vance, is up there on a stage talking about locking school doors. And can you please explain to me how a lock? Hold on, I got a question. Hold on, I got a question. Can you please explain to me how harder windows and a locked school door would stop somebody with an AR-15 and thousands of rounds of ammunition from going into that school? Can you please explain to me how that would help?
Nobody's carrying thousands of rounds of ammunition.
Can you explain to me how any of these school shootings would have stopped if a door was locked?
I will agree with your previous caller talking about his mannerisms and his facial.
Why won't you answer that question? Can you explain to me how a locked? Can you explain to me how a locked school? Patrick, we're running out of time. Can you? Okay, he looks silly. Okay, that's all I wanted to hear, Patrick. You see? Then I get calm again, and then I say thank you for answering. Patrick, I'd like you to call again tomorrow so we could have a longer conversation. Is that fair?
I'll be happy to talk to you, Brian. If I have the time, man, I'll try to make the time.
Thank you, Patrick. I appreciate you calling in. Thank you very much. I can have a civil conversation with a MAGA supporter as long as they're honest. I got to be honest with you, though. I'm amazed that Patrick admitted that, but I appreciate the honesty. I'm sorry. I know we have a lot of other people on hold. Guess what? Here's the good news. We're going to do it all again tomorrow. And I promise you I'll keep the phone lines open. And I promise you this will be the most interactive show in the country. Calls from all over the country. Calls from all over the world. That's what we do on this show at Pushing the Limits. By the way, find me on my socials at PTL Radio Show on YouTube, on X, on TikTok. I'm very interactive on my socials. I put up a lot of content up there. Also, check out my website, pushingthelimits.live. Again, that website is pushingthelimits.live. You could buy merchandise up there, and you could also donate. There's a donate button there, $5, $10, $20 a month, whatever you can afford. We greatly appreciate it. We're going to have some special guests on the show tomorrow, of course. And listen, we're going to continue this conversation on the debate. We're also going to continue the conversation on interviews. Who's Trump going to be talking to today? Who's Harris going to be talking to today, if anybody? Again, thank you all for joining us. Check out my website, pushingthelimits.live. Thanks to the producer, Mr. Numchuck, for helping us out. And thank you for everybody on social media. We will catch you same time, same place live tomorrow. Have a great day, everybody.
In these uncertain times, we need a leader who puts policy over politics.
I'm Ron Quince. I am beyond the bickering and what we see today. I am running to fight for your values, faith, family, and freedom.
Ron Quince stands for safe borders, lower taxes, and lower prices.
Let's take our country back, one community, one vote at a time. I am Ron Quince, and I'm asking for your vote because every vote matters. I am Ron Quince, and I approve this message.
Brian Shapiro, you're an idiot, but I love you.
Have you ever dreamed of having your own radio show or a podcast, but just didn't think it was possible? Well, dreams can come true. Radio